Saw 5. Saw 4 did go to number 1 at the box office opening weekend, but it didn't make as much as 3. But either way, they actually planned out a new trilogy of Saw 4, 5, and 6, starting right away with an opening trap. Kinda wild it took them this long to do a pendulum. Billy explains that the guy has to crush his hands and he can go free. This guy's tattoos are looking kinda sus. He crushes his hands, but it doesn't work. He also sees someone watching. This opening is already better than Saw 4 because we actually know who this guy is. We have the Billy tape explaining it and the trap. And also with the guy watching, this pays off where in Saw 1 it turned out Jigsaw likes to watch. Then we cut literally right at the end of Saw 4 with Strom being locked up, and he finds a secret door with a tape saying to go back. But he decides to go forward, and he gets attacked by Pig Mask, and gets decapitated. Nah, just kidding. But it did honestly look like he was for a second. He's stuck in a tank that will fill with water, and that is actually the actor doing his own stunts. But luckily, he does the old pen in the neck to breathe trick. Hoffman leaves the building with Jeff's daughter, for all those who are wondering where she was, and I guess now she's going to foster care because all of her immediate family are dead. Hoffman says there were no survivors, just as Strom gets wheeled out. I like this transition of Hoffman fading into Jigsaw. Death, the two of a sides of killer John Kramer, aka Jigsaw. Jill's going over Jigsaw's will, and of course he recorded it. Basically, she's getting a box, but we have no time to show what's in it. As Kaufman's getting an award, but then he remembers Strom's still around, so he goes to steal evidence. And then he goes to talk with Strom, who's going over Perez's death. And Strom is definitely suspecting Kaufman might be involved in all this Jigsaw shenanigans. But then Erickson walks in and he says Strom's off the case because he went in alone, which will be ironic later. Then Kaufman goes to the Kaufman lair. He set up a new trap, and just like Saw 1, he also made a little cute miniature for it. Much like Saw 2, there's a bunch of different individuals stuck in a room together, but because it's Saw 5, there's 5 of them, and the sharp object looks like a 5. They all wake up and we find out who they are. Britt, I almost called her Britta like 100 times. Luba, Charles, Malik, and Ashley.
You are all connected. A cable runs through your caller devices. It can be pulled so tight that you will be decapitated before you. However, if one of you moves to retrieve a key, the 60-second timer will begin for you all.
They're all wired together, so they kind of have to move together. But they start freaking out and survival of the fittest, and they all run to their key, and Ashley got the worst of it. Hoffman finds out Erickson's in charge and Strom's out of the case. Strom starts doing some research, and it turns out that the person who was in the pendulum in the beginning was the guy who killed Hoffman's sister. The film has 3 going on stories with Strom's investigation, Hoffman trying to frame Strom, and the game. Strom investigates the pendulum room they didn't deconstruct for some reason, and it turns out the person who set it up was Hoffman. He wasn't even working for Jigsaw at the time, it was all set up. How did he get a pendulum? Back at the game, it turns out Charles knows a little more than he's leading on. But no time for that because the new game starts, and the previous room blows up. Billy explains that this room's gonna blow up unless they find the key to hide in some bomb shelters. The keys are expended on top of the ceiling in glass jars full of broken glass, and there's only 3 keys. So the guys start whacking at them, and then Charles just immediately character shifts from the cold, calm one to survival of the fittest and starts whacking Malik. But then the girls whack him, steal their keys. Malik gets a key as well, and Charles blows up. Strom goes over all the Jigsaw cases, which goes into a flashback of Hoffman. He heads to his apartment. Oh, hey, Jigsaw. Wait a minute. This must be early on because he's doing the jabbing himself. He takes Hoffman back to his lair and ties him up to a shotgun. And he knows that he's the faker. But he actually is more concerned with the fact that the pendulum's blade is kind of subpar for him. This is honestly one of the best scenes in the whole franchise of Jigsaw knocking Kaufman down and trying to teach him what it means to actually be Jigsaw. The difference between Kaufman being a killer and Jigsaw giving them a chance to escape and believing everyone deserves a chance. He even raises his voice at Kaufman, an extreme rarity for him. Then they play a little game of is the shotgun loaded or not. And it isn't. Man, Jigsaw, you so cheeky. Oh, wait a minute. He lets Hoffman go and leaves out a straight laser. but reminds him if he does do what he thinks he's gonna do, he does have info about him being the faker. So Jigsaw blackmailed Kaufman to be his apprentice. Strahm then somehow has seen all of this. He heads to the barbed wire trap from the first movie, which again hasn't been decommissioned. And plot twist, it was Jigsaw and Hoffman who kidnapped the guy for this trap. This was back in Jigsaw's bald era. And again, this flashback tries to teach Kaufman the difference of rehabilitation and murder. Jigsaw is still in the wrong, but you still understand why he does this and why he believes this. And I like the difference between Kaufman's relationship with Jigsaw and Amanda's relationship. Where Amanda sees Jigsaw as a father figure and a savior, Kaufman just kind of works with him like a business partner. Also in the scene, Kaufman knows that Danny Glover is onto them, so Jigsaw decides next trap they're going to plant a pen from Dr. Gordon, connecting all this back to the first film. But then we connect to the second film when it was Kaufman that was the one who drugged and kidnapped OP and put him in the trap, as him and Jigsaw set up the gun from the door. Meanwhile, back in the current time's trap, Malik says he started fires in his past, but no time because they got to their next obstacle where they have to electrically charge something in a bathtub. Luba out of nowhere suggests they just immediately sacrifice Malik. Just like with Charles earlier, just kind of an immediate hate the character so you don't feel bad when they turn on her. But it is kind of surprising when Britta does stab Luba. They electrically charge her and get into the next room. Meanwhile, Jill thinks that Strahm is following her. Then we get a flashback again. This time to Saw 3, where Kaufman's talking to Jigsaw, and he's thinking that maybe he shouldn't do this whole thing with Amanda. But Jigsaw assures him it's fine, and he sneaks out the secret door from the beginning of the film, just as Amanda and Laura roll in. And I love the note of Jigsaw quickly putting his mask on just so he can dramatically take it off at Laura. That seems just like very realistic. And it turns out there was not supposed to be any survivors but Hoffman. So I'm guessing that was a Hoffman trap, because why would Jigsaw build a trap purposely to kill someone? Strahm investigating the room from Saw 3 somehow found that out again. Kaufman stole Strahm's phone and has it tracked, and he places it in his lair. Meanwhile, in the trap, they find a thing that they have to stick their hands in, which has saws in it, and they have to get at least 10 pints of blood in it. The characters do think about using the water from the tub earlier, but there's not enough of it. What they should have done was use Luba's body to siphon the blood, but even the writers admit that they didn't think about that in the commentary, so that was an oversight. And then Britta realizes that all the keys were actually the same, and the whole thing was they were supposed to actually work together, not survival of the fittest. They just needed to smash one box to get one key for everyone. The bomb shelters were big enough that more than one person could fit in them. They all could have just easily zapped a little of themselves, and they all could have just gave a little bit of blood for the thing. So like always, remember kids, Jordan Peterson is stupid, and you should always work together with your friends. Back with Strahm, he finds Kaufman's apartment, and he goes into a trapdoor. The FBI goes to the warehouse. Britt connects that Malik's fire story, and everyone is involved in it somehow. If you actually notice, Kaufman's house is actually the same house from Saw 2, which is a little weird. But then you also remember that they never found the house from Saw 2. The past room blows up, and now they have to give up blood. Billy says the tagline from the first movie, "How much blood will you shed to stay alive?" Strahm heads into the basement, walks past the bathroom door. How big is this basement? The two stick their hands in the saws. Strahm finds a big crate full of broken glass from Saw 4. I'm guessing Jigsaw in the past just had this laying around and couldn't find any use for it, so Kaufman had to use it. Then Strahm finds a tape in it saying that he has to get in to survive. But he hears a noise, so he stops the tape before he finishes it. And then Erickson heads into the lair, alone, unlike what he said earlier that got Strahm off the case. I tell you, man, these hypocritical cops and FBI agents, man, I've been saying this since middle school, but no one ever listens to me. The noise that Strahm heard was actually Kaufman going to check in what's going on. But then Strahm jumps him from behind and tosses him into the crate. But then he finishes the tape, and it turns out that he actually did have to go into the box. As the box, like a superhero movie, goes into the ground as the wall slowly crushed Strahm. Alright. Final body count. 6. That's kind of low. This is a pretty good sequel. It's definitely retconning Kaufman to be more involved with the jigsaw stuff, but much like Amanda in 3, I do think it does work for the series. As well as it contrasts someone who doesn't really care and just wants people to die like Kaufman, and Jigsaw who's a perfectionist and wants to give people a chance to survive. The film's just interesting like that. But it does suffer that Strom just kind of finds stuff out and he kind of shouldn't be able to. The ending's kind of silly, and the big work together trap doesn't feel very interesting, and we don't really learn that much about the people in the trap. And the film does suffer a little of middle child of a trilogy syndrome, where a lot of it is just kind of getting people to the places we need them for the end of the story, in exposition which will be paid off later. But overall, as well as really good editing, much better than the last film, and the expansion of the Hoffman character, I give this movie an 8 out of 10.